So we get several of our students to work on a live project in a different cultural setting. Third part of immersion is working on a live project in the local industry. So we hoping that through that we make a difference to the region. So immersion as one philosophy. Second is entrepreneurial mindset, because you know, in the way we look at entrepreneurship is not just business entrepreneurship, social entrepreneurship, and entrepreneurship. What's important is the mindset of entrepreneurship. So which is saying how do we develop this whole spirit of entrepreneurship in whatever we do. The third is analytics, because the future leaders in entrepreneurship will have to work with a whole lot of data which is not there only within their operational boundaries, but data which is there all around, including the social media. So how do we make sure that in our transformational journey they're confident to enter this data? And the fourth is the leadership, which is where again this team is extremely important. Because finally, how do we make sure that when the students go through management education experience, they emerge as a leaders. Now, unfortunately, leadership is not something we teach in a classroom environment. And that's where the events like this are extremely important for us. For example, we're extremely proud of the fact that this whole event is, from the concept to delivery is managed by students. So there's the intellectual leadership by students in terms of the theme. The theme is identified students, the speakers are identified by students, the panels are going to be moderated by students. So we're saying, if you want to develop leadership, you must create an opportunity where students can even fail. So I think it's okay with us if there are mistakes. Because that's the only way they can learn. Now, obviously, the leadership is much bigger, and we want to understand from today's discussion about how do we do this in these countries. Right now, as I said, we try and do several things outside the classroom, through which we're trying to develop leadership skills. We also have an initiative, we help students understand their emotional intelligence piece. But I think probably we need to do a lot more in this area. And that's where I think this today's theme in terms of how do you look at the leadership. If we're going to look at future, we keep talking about this issue that future is going to be very different from the past. We need to understand how the future leadership is going to be different. And that's where all of us are very keen to hear the whole range of leaders we have. They're leaders in their own spirit, but they also have our thoughts in terms of the way maybe the future leadership should be. And we're hoping that today's deliberation will help us understand that how to develop the skills in our school. So for us, it's a very important part of our overall vision. There's a piece which we're trying to do something, but I'm hoping that today's deliberation will help us to take us to the next level. So it's a being a young institution, we think we have this huge advantage where we can do a lot of things differently. We're experimenting a lot, and we committed to our vision where we said we don't look at ourselves with a 20-year horizon. A lot of things which we are talking about is not something we will get in a 5 years or a 10-year kind of horizon. But we are committed. Luckily, we have a great support from a local industry, and we've been in the last 3 years, deep relations with the local industry. And I can see some of them being here, and we hope to use that also in our future journey. Before I end, I want to thank Uh, all of you come from outside Udaipur to spend a day with us, as well as the industry leaders from Udaipur. Uh, we hope to obviously learn lots from you today. But I hope at the end of the day you leave as a friend of the institute, because in our long journey you need support from a lot of friends and well wishers. Look forward to your continued support. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for welcoming the gathering and sharing your vision for IIM Udaipur. We would now like to invite our Honorable Chief Guest, Dr. V. Raghunathan, to address the audience. Dr. V. Raghunathan is the CEO of GMR Viralakshmi Foundation, the CSR arm of GMR Group. He has served as a member of several national level committees such as BSc, NSC, and SEBI, and has taught finance and accounting at IIM Ahmedabad for over 20 years. Please join me in welcoming him to the podium.
My dear students, Dr. Janak Shah, my fellow speakers, ladies and gentlemen, you don't know what a privilege it is for me this morning to be here for several reasons. One, of course, is I'm your director's teacher. That makes you my grand student. That makes you my grand students. The flip side is, I never felt older than I feel today. You know, these days, I go around speaking anywhere, in government schools, in little colleges, in little villages, to institutions like these. And I almost never say no, because especially when people like Janak Shah make you feel so old, the only way to feel young is to speak in young institutions. And that's why I'm here this morning. So thank you, Janak, for having me here, and thank you, students, for having me here. Because it's predominantly student summit. You know, I'm going to basically talk in a more reflective manner. And I think students like you already know, in fact, you use the right definition. When you said leadership is all about inspiration. So I'm not going to give you any theories of leadership and so forth. I'll just share some reflections of my own. Because more often than not, if you ask a young management trainee what he thinks is leadership, he'll say manager is the leader. You ask a manager who is your leader, he'll think general manager is the leader. General manager will think the CEO is the leader. The CEO will think the chairman is the leader. The chairman will think the promoter is the leader. The promoter may think the chief minister is the leader because he has to, ensure that things work well for us corporate. And in general, in the country at large, if you talk about, all the problems that we have, why 67 years after our independence, we still have 60 crore people without adequate food or adequate housing or adequate this or that. We said the failure of leadership. So suddenly we are talking about leaders who are on spotless white, or on a white umbrella with a red light on top, or with safari suit, gunmen right next to you, jumping the queue at the airport, security when you are waiting. So that's the leadership that comes to mind. And institutionally, if you talk about leadership, every institution on day one, first of all, they believe without a mission and vision, there is no leadership institutionally. And everyone is aunt and cat who wants to be world class. They may not even be regional class, they may not be state class, they may not be national class, but they want to be world class. So there is a lot of misunderstanding as if leadership is about a destination, about a position. And we all know that's not true. our very, very wonderful, a good human being as a Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, his most ardent well-wishers will not call him a great leader. Prime Minister he was. Leader I am not so sure. Anna Hazare, a retired Havaldar driver from the Indian Army, Dr. V.K. Singh was photographed sitting at his feet in one of the pictures. So is a general a leader or is a Havaldar a leader? So obviously positions or reaching somewhere is not what leadership is all about. Then that raises the question, alright, if so, then what is leadership? And I'm just going to give you a few stories which in some ways will define, to my mind, what a leadership mindset is all about. Because as youngsters today, often we seniors have this liberty. We screw the country big time and now say the future is in your hands. That's one advantage of getting older. So the future is in your hands, so your leadership does not count for the future of this country. So let me give you some stories. Not long back, I was listening to a motivational speaker by the name of Mark Inglis. I'm sure some of you have heard him. Many of you may not have, but some of you must have. If I tell you somebody has climbed the Mount Everest, if I tell you he has a silver medal in Olympics, if I tell you that he has a PhD in biotechnology, he is a professor of biotechnology, if I tell you he runs a wonderful NGO, and if I tell you he is a great winemaker, and an international motivational speaker who speaks for something like $50,000 a talk and so forth, you would think you are talking about a great achiever. Would you agree? Except that I tell you that he is a double amputee below the knees. And in his talk, he told us his story. Apparently, he is a New Zealander. You can Google him. Mark Inglis, I-N-G-L-I-S. In the 80s, his aspiration was to climb the Mount Everest. He was an aspiring mountaineer. But to practice the conditions at 8,000 meters of Mount Everest, the two of them went to the peak. They were just coming down when a very rare gale hit the mountain at about 130 miles per hour. And these mountains are so sharp, they were virtually being blown off the mountain. So they found a small crevasse at the space of these two chairs here, and they just huddled there. And because it was just an afternoon assault on the hill, they had no sleeping bags. They were not clad in very heavy-duty woolens. They had 6 biscuits between the two of them. But as things turned out, the gale lasted 13 days, and his colleague died of exposure. And and he says, I could mock about it forever, or I could pick up my life and move on. He did his graduation, he did his PhD, he started a career. But all that apart, the most important thing was for him to get back on his feet. A friend of his who was an engineer, he worked with him to make him some artificial legs. Then he told him how he could improve it, try aluminium, try titanium, try carbon fiber, and so forth. But his problem was, just as he managed to learn to stand, by then he had put on a lot of weight. The stumps would rub against the leather pouch. It would get raw, the stitches would give way, he would start bleeding. So he would have to stop it for a while, but when he stopped it for a while, he put on weight. And when he put on weight and he tried again, the pressure would be even more. So there was this chicken and egg problem. If he was to try and walk, he had to reduce weight, but he couldn't reduce weight because he wasn't able to exercise. That's when somebody told him, why don't you take to cycling? Because you need very strong thigh muscles to be able to walk fast or jog and so on. So he said, if I was to cycle, I might as well have some goal to work towards. So he said he took Paralympics as his goal, worked at cycling, his thigh muscles became strong. So he slowly took to jogging so that his weight could come down. And before long, he says, I was able to do virtually 99% of what most people are able to do. And that is when he went on to win the silver Paralympics medal and so forth. In the meanwhile, he does his PhD and all the rest of it. But in 2009,